summarize. We are discussing Bhakti Loka, essay 7. These are the essays written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on the second and third verses. So we are in essay 7. Also, we are discussing from the purport of Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Swami Maharaj. Here, we are discussing, last week I had a discussion on Utsaha, enthusiasm. The solution to overcome mechanical devotional service is the persistent mechanical devotional service. This was the topic of discussion before we had a discussion on Prabhupada's purport. Here, in this, we are discussing how spontaneous sense gratification. Presently, our situation is in a state of spontaneous for quite a many. And from there, the person comes to a stage of devotional service filled with apathy, laziness, and inattention. And slowly, maybe some are in this category, and slowly they have to come to higher category where mechanical, diligent engagement of senses in Krishna conscious service. So this is what we have to aspire for. From spontaneous sense gratification to at least mechanically, but we are very diligently trying to engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness. Then only we'll be able to come to a spontaneous devotional service, from spontaneous sense gratification to spontaneous. So this is our where we have to work upon. So these are the symptoms of vibrant faith is enthusiasm, and enthusiasm is a life of Shraddha. And then we had this discussion, Prabhupada on Utsaha. Prabhupada says that Bhakti is practical activity. Devotional service is not a matter of sentimental speculation or imaginative ecstasy. This is one of the famous statements of Srila Prabhupada, where he is nicely explained devotional service is not a matter of sentimental speculation or imaginative ecstasy. It's a substance is practical activity. And Uttama Bhakti involves the rendering of devotional service in a way that is favorable to the Lord. This is also from the definition of Uttama Bhakti. Engagement is meaningful devotional activity. Favorable engagement of senses is very critical. And also it is very critical that in the beginning of our devotional service, we engage in likable devotional engagement. So this was the discussion Prabhuji was trying to help us understand. Initially, we should try to do what likable devotional engagement. We must have to have a devotional solution for boredom. Especially who are leaders, they should also see their followers are engaged in their likable properly. And in the early stage, mind is running towards likable material things. So what is to do? So it is better that we engage in likable devotional activities. So that is recommended in the initial stages. And then there is a discussion on the 9 process of devotional service that are there. Hearing the name and glories of the Lord, chanting his glories, remembering the Lord, serving the Lord's lotus feet, worshipping the deity, offering obeisances unto the Lord, acting as the Lord's servant, making friends with the Lord, surrendering oneself fully to the Lord. So these are the 9 processes of devotional service. And hearing is the first step in acquiring transcendental knowledge. One should not give oral reception to unauthorized person. Shravanam naiva kartavyam sarpochishta yathapam. We should not hear from unauthorized. It looks like milk, but it is poisoned milk because it's touched by a snake, because their Shraddha is wrong. One must hear from a bona fide spiritual master who is Tattvadarshi. And then Prabhupada gives this Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena seva upadekshantite jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina tadvijnanartam sagurum eva abhigachyati. This from Mundaka Upanishad. And then we have discussion on how ISKCON is giving an opportunity to hear from people connected to bona fide sampradaya. Bona fide means they have bona fide Shraddha. Shraddha is very pure. In the shloka from Chaitanya Charitamrita is Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. After wandering so many lifetimes around the universe, one will get opportunity to get mercy of Guru and Krishna. The material world is a place of confinement for the living entities who are by nature Anandamaya, pleasure seeking. They actually want to be free from the confinement of this world of conditional happiness. But not knowing the process of liberation, they are bound to transmigrate from one species of life to another, from one planet to another. When, by good fortune, one comes in contact with a pure devotee and hears from him patiently, one begins to follow the path of devotional service. And Prabhupada says the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is giving such a chance to humanity at large. After so long in the material world, we get an opportunity. That's why we should be very enthusiastic that we got an opportunity. And this is what Prabhupada is trying to make us understand, that how rare this opportunity is there. One must accept this rare opportunity with great enthusiasm, because Brahmande Brahmite Kona Bhagavaji. Without enthusiasm, one cannot be successful. How does enthusiasm come? Enthusiasm comes when we understand the value of what we are getting. That's why Brahmande Brahmite Kona. Enthusiasm means action, but action for whom? The answer is that one should always act for Krishnarte Akila Chestha. Enthusiasm should be to follow the instructions of spiritual master for the pleasure of Krishna, activity connected to Krishna. Under the direction of bona fide spiritual master, one has to make everything favorable for Krishna's service. So this is how this is how the instruction is given. And then the last part is how one can make everything favorable for devotional service. This is what, because if there is enthusiasm to serve Krishna, then we will make all the arrangements how I can serve Krishna in the best possible way. And whatever is there in our limits, we will try to connect it to Krishna and serve Krishna in that way. So here, that is what is explained, that at present we are using a dictaphone, Prabhupada is telling, and we are using this dictaphone to write Krishna conscious literature. Since nothing is independent of Krishna's energy, everything should be dovetailed in his service. The devotee find the correct means by which everything can be utilized in service of Lord. So this is also enthusiasm. To engage everything, whatever is available in Krishna's service, is also enthusiasm. Endeavor executed with intelligence in Krishna consciousness is called utsaha or enthusiasm. Intelligence generates enthusiasm. When we have intelligence, we understand how a particular thing is going to help me in Krishna consciousness, then that creates enthusiasm to accept that things. Endeavor born out of proper Krishna consciousness, understanding what is favorable for my devotional service and what is not. Endeavor born out of that knowledge is called enthusiasm. This is what we understand. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So I apologize. I got a little bit late. So yeah. So let us start today's discussion. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. So as very nicely summarized by Shila, summarized about what we discussed about Utsaha in the previous session. Especially Srila Prabhupada's commentary, and also few things before that also. So today we have some time. We will discuss Srila Bhakti Rakshak Swami Maharaj's commentary on this particular section on Utsaha, and then subsequently we will also discuss. We will start Nishchaya, Krishna willing. Let's see what is Krishna's plan. So, but for now, we will start discussing from Srila Bhakti Rakshak Swami Maharaj's commentary. But before we start that, if there is any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share as add based on what we discussed last week or based on whatever was summarized by Radha Pramod Prabhu now, we will take before we start today's discussion. Anything anyone would like to share, ask, add, you can please go ahead. Okay, if there is none, then I think we'll start our discussion now. So we have been discussing about Utsaha, which is the first of the 6 favorable things for progressing on the path of devotional service. Utsahan Nishchayat Dairyat Tat Karma Pravartanat Sangatyagat Sato Vritte Shadvir Bhaktir Prasiddhyati. 6 things which enhances one's progress on the path of devotional service. So in that we have been discussing about Utsaha. Bhakti Rakshak Swami Maharaj commentary we are going to discuss now about Utsaha. So Maharaj says, eagerness should always be to serve the wishes of the highest plane of Krishna Bhakti. So Utsaha means enthusiasm, eagerness, right? Eagerness should always be to serve the wishes of the highest plane. So when Rupa Goswami speaks about eagerness, he is not talking about in general eagerness or enthusiasm. There should be enthusiasm for performing Krishna conscious activities. Otherwise, there should be no enthusiasm. Not for non-Krishna conscious activities. He is not talking about generic enthusiasm. He is talking about enthusiasm for performing Krishna conscious activities. So he says that is very, very rarely to be found in this mundane world. We shall be eager to catch the telegraphic language of the highest plane. So eagerness should be taken as enthusiasm. So Maharaj says here, we should be eager to catch the telegraphic language of the highest plane, which means there should be eagerness to understand topics related to Krishna consciousness. Be eager to understand about how we can re-establish our relationship with Krishna. That eagerness should be there. That eagerness is what is enthusiasm is eagerness. We must try to catch that and be subservient to that. That should be the nature of our quest and the utilization of our energy. So quest should be there. Endeavor. But endeavor should be for catching the telegraphic language of the highest plane. Because this is telegraphic language. Because first thing we are trying to communicate with a different plane, and the language is totally different. Because the language of this material world is how I can gratify my own senses. That is the language of the material world. But the language of the spiritual world is how I can please Krishna, how I can satisfy Krishna. This is the language of the spiritual world. That's why it is mentioned here as telegraphic language. We must try to catch that and be subservient to that. That should be the nature of our quest and the utilization of our energy. So now the question is how to develop that. How to change the paradigm of our endeavor. How do we change the paradigm of our endeavor? So he says, with the contact of the sadhu and with the help of the scriptures, we can try to increase that inner feeling, that inner demand. So, by sadhu and shastra. When we contact with sadhu and shastra, then enthusiasm for Krishnendriya Preeti will manifest. Otherwise, there is enthusiasm for Atmendriya Preeti, gratifying one's own senses. But when we come in touch with sadhu and shastra, then by that touch we develop enthusiasm for Krishnendriya Preeti, desire to please Krishna. That inner demand can only be satisfied by Krishna consciousness. The source of eagerness is only from a real sadhu. Only a real sadhu can give enthusiasm for pleasing Krishna. Eagerness to please Krishna can come only from a real sadhu. We will find some interest to hear about the Lord from him. The proper beginning is there. When we find some interest to hear about Krishna from the mouth of that sadhu, that is where our real progress towards Krishna consciousness starts. The Bhakti school is independent of Varnashrama or Jnana, etc. One may not be a wise man. One may not be a very energetic man. One may not be master of opulence and other powers. Only the minimum is demanded from him, that he has very earnest hunger. This is the most important thing. We don't have to be wise. We don't have to be energetic. We don't have to have a lot of opulence or a lot of powers. The only thing that is needed is hunger. Earnest hunger to know how we can please Krishna. He must have the smallest taste for the food. Smallest taste for the food. So here taste refers to Shraddha or enthusiasm. So he says, yes, swalpapi ruchireva syad bhakti tattvavabodhika yuktistu kevala neva yadasya apratishthata. Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, swalpapi ruchireva syad. There must be some little bit of eagerness to know about the subject matter. Then one becomes qualified to practice bhakti. One need not have the ability to understand. Rupa Goswami, nowhere, either in Bhagavatam or in Bhagavad Gita or in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, nowhere it is mentioned that one needs intelligence to understand. He says one needs just some eagerness. When the eagerness is there, Krishna says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam yenama upayantite. I give the intelligence by which one can understand, come back to me. So if Krishna wants, Krishna can give the intelligence. But the eagerness should come from us. If we have eagerness, then Krishna can give the intelligence to understand. So intelligence is not a prerequisite. Eagerness is the prerequisite. And that eagerness comes from sadhu sangha. He says he must find some sweetness, some taste in his words, in his affairs. When it is coming from a proper source through a genuine sadhu, a proper agent. So when the subject matter about Krishna is coming from a genuine source, one must have some taste. Huh? Some taste means basic faith. Yeah, what these people are telling must be true. So that kind of very basic foundational faith, okay, that is needed. So when that is there, then one can progress on the path of devotional service. And when that eagerness or enthusiasm increases more and more, then it adds fuel for that person to progress on the path of bhakti. That taste will take him farther and gradually into the highest domain. Laulyam api mulyam ekalam. The only passage money is our sincere inclination. Tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam. Janma koti sukritairna labhyate. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita matihi. Kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate. Tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam. Janma koti sukritairna labhyate. So all that is needed is basic. It starts with, it may not start with laulyam greed, but it may start with basic trust, basic faith. And then when that basic faith becomes more and more enthusiastic, then eventually it culminates in greed. And that greed will pull us towards Krishna Prema. So he says, the hearts naturally flow. That is the passage money, nothing else. Our sincere earnestness to get that is the only price we have to pay in advance. All that is needed. There is no question of ability to understand. There is no question of intelligence. All that is needed is actually eagerness, earnestness, enthusiasm. That's all. No other price but earnest desire. It is not to be purchased by any money or anything else, which is acquired by so many formal practices in millions of births. Substance is necessary and not form. This is a very powerful statement. Substance is necessary, not form. Substance is eagerness. Form is the ability, skill set, opportunity. These are all form. If the form is there and no substance is there, then it is like having 56 items, chappan bhog, but there is no appetite. But if is there, the appetite is there, even one item, if it is there, one relish it and eat it. Right. So similarly, substance is necessary, not the form. That's what here he says. Form may be adopted only as much as it may connect me with that higher thing. So the external things, if they are favorable, if they are pushing me, if they are helping me come towards Krishna consciousness, then it's okay. Otherwise, so he says, Sarvadharman Parityajya, give up all phases of duty that you perceive as perfect. At once, try to jump into the ocean of nectar. I am the ocean of nectar. Try to jump. This is an explanation of Sarvadharman Parityajya. Give up all phases of duty that you perceive as perfect. Don't have enthusiasm for anything else. You don't have to have enthusiasm for Varnashrama. You don't have enthusiasm for Jnana. Enthusiasm should be only for Bhakti. It should not be for anything else. So enthusiasm should be to jump into the ocean of nectar, which is Krishna. That is the direct teaching. Our addiction to this or that, to Vanaprastha Dharma, Sannyas Dharma, or Grihastha Dharma, has a very negligent value. The eagerness to follow that kind of dharma will not help a devotee. Not that one should whimsically reject, but at the same time, subservient to the eagerness to please Krishna. So any other principle, any other attachment to any other dharma, so-called dharma, even if it may be Vedic dharma, if it is not subservient to the eagerness to please Krishna, then it is an obstacle for our progress on the path of devotion service. It should be subservient. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. If that particular dharma is anukul for bhakti, we accept. If it is pratikul, we reject. So there is no question of, oh, it may be unfavorable for my bhakti, but it is according to my varna and ashrama. He said, no, nothing doing. Nothing doing. It may be favorable for your varna ashrama. It may be recommended in the dharma shastras, but no. If it is unfavorable for devotional service, we give it up. So, but earnest desire, that is to be acquired by any means. That is bhakti proper. Tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam janma koti sukrutairna labhyate. The only price to pay is intense eagerness for that is not obtained even after millions of births. Okay. It is very rare to get human birth. Even if one may get human birth, it is still more rarer to get eagerness to practice dharma. Varnashrama dharma. So even it may be easy to get eagerness to practice varnashrama dharma, but it is still rarer to get a desire to transcend varnashrama dharma and practice bhakti actually. It's the most rarest thing. And when once one gets the desire to practice bhakti, then one should not have any other consideration. All other considerations become subservient to it. Not by your good deeds that you have acquired in your previous innumerable paths. That is not taken into account. Only the recognition of the sincere earnestness within you. How earnestly we are desiring, how enthusiastic we are to progress on the path of devotional service. That is the most important thing. Tatra laulyam api mulyam eka. The very gist of your ego, they want. That is their demand. And that plane is built up with that material, eagerness. Eagerness to establish a relationship with Krishna. And whatever is unfavorable, we should be willing to forego. And whatever is favorable, we should be willing to accept. The most sincere part of the heart, that is the material by which that domain has been created. Whatever is the most sincere part of the heart, that should be dedicated to this particular purpose. It is eternal. It is eternal, but it is with that substance. Back to home, back to eternal inner self. Externally, by so many of our demands for the senses, we are being carried forcibly in this direction and that direction, dragging us here and there. We have to find out our innermost existence. That is to be a member of Vrindavan. So that is the eagerness. Our eagerness or enthusiasm should be for that. Anything that is favorable for that, we accept. Anything which is unfavorable for that, we reject. So eagerness should be only for that and not for anything else. So in this way, very simple commentary, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Swami Maharaj has presented. So that brings us to the end of the first of the 6 favorable items for progressing on the path of devotional service, which is enthusiasm or utsaha. Before we move on to discussing on the theme of Nishchaya, any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add, you can please raise your hands. If there is nothing, then we will start discussing from Nishchaya. Nishchaya means yes, Sachi Pran Prabhu.
You said that whatever is particular to the bhakti, you should give up. And although it is sometimes it's very difficult, what we think is anukul or pratikul, and someone who is, visualizing something. So whom should we believe? That sometimes we feel that it is, I can give you the example. One of a sannyasi disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he was building Krishna Balaram temple, and that time all the activities were looking like pratikul to him, because he was not able to even chant properly Krishna. So in 16 rounds he was not able to chant. I heard from at the time from his, then Prabhupada told him, has given some instructions to him that time, and it was a specific case that he told then he showed the book of Bhagavad Gita, and he mentioned to him that his Arjuna is chanting. So that was that the time that he was desperately required to work on the counting the gonis, cement gonis, and the local Brajavasis, all these dealings. So he couldn't visualize that it is an spiritual master's desire. So you have to be anukul for bhakti only. But the individual person may think it is not anukul for me because I am not able to do basic sadhana also. So how sometimes to understand or visualize that whether it is pratikul or anukul from uh, uh, individual assessment, or from some more senior who can guide us that whether it is really anukul for my devotion, or really pratikul for my devotion, so that I should give it up.
Yeah. I mean, definitely we should take proper guidance from a senior devotee whose instruction is in line with the instruction of the spiritual master.
Okay.
That is the most important thing. Otherwise, there are many senior devotees, but what they are telling, if we have directly heard from the mouth of our spiritual master, then we accept.
Yes.
If we have not, then we can always go for the second opinion. You can ask another senior devotee and say, Prabhuji, I have not heard this instruction from the spiritual master. So what do I do? So that is why Guru Sadhu Shastra, all three has to be in line. So any instruction, any guidance we get, it must be in line with the Shastra, in line with the teachings of the Guru, in line with the Parampara's teachings, not otherwise. So therefore, we should definitely ask the spiritual master whether if we have, but if you can very clearly see the coherence that what the spiritual master has told, the same thing the senior devotee is also telling. If it is in line with the mood and specific instruction, then we can accept. Otherwise, very sincere, good-hearted senior devotees may tell something in a very innocent way, but it may not necessarily be the teaching of our parampara.
Mm.
Like someone, like say for example, they may say that they may tell Prabhuji, you should join this political rally. Hmm.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
should you should gather them and we should join this political rally. So you may say, okay, of course, senior devotee is only telling. But the point is,
Mm.
has my spiritual master ever told this?
Mm.
Has as Srila Prabhupada ever told that we should be participating in political rallies?
Mm.
Uh, so is it given anywhere in the scriptures? Either Rupa Goswami has written or Srila Prabhupada has written. So if it is
Mm.
not, then we should ask. I mean, in
Mm.
the worst case, one can directly ask the spiritual master also. Or
Mm.
sometimes some politician is giving a speech and
Mm.
someone is telling, Prabhu, you should gather all devotees and come and we should go and hear that speech. So now the question is, now who says so? So
Mm.
we should definitely get it clarified. Um,
Mm.
is it recommended by our shastras? Is it recommended by our my spiritual? Have I ever heard my spiritual master speak this way? So
Mm.
these are things. So wherever there is concurrence, there is match, then we don't have to worry. But
Mm.
when there is no match, then we should definitely confirm actually.
Mm. Also, Prabhuji, sometimes spiritual masters, can say that you just simply follow this person. I mean, now it is very difficult that every time you will be having a spiritual masters, you have a direct availability, or you can go ask him. Once he said, suppose you follow this person, whatever he said. So that means whatever that person is saying, is it like a only Shiksha Gurus, or that person is following whatever instruction is giving is as per the spiritual master's instruction only? Na?
Well, the mood is correct mood that we should be willing to follow our authorities. Uh, but then there is I mean, as long as it is in line,
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
because even if you see, even in the
Mm.
history of ISKCON, there have been
Mm.
cases where wholesale, Prabhupada did say that follow this particular
Mm.
authority,
Mm.
and I mean, Chaupati has been witness to so
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
therefore, so if and in fact that was not even mm, it was not even that the leader has to attend some political rallies or anything like that. He just
Mm.
he just changed certain external ways of
Mm.
following spirituality only. It's not
Mm.
that he introduced politics in the name of spirituality.
Mm.
So, but still we know what happened. Eventually, you know, history is there for us to see.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so therefore, we can always, when there is,
Yeah.
when there is a
Original.
difference in
Mm.
terms of instructions and thing that has come from the spiritual master, even though the
Mm.
spiritual master has asked us to follow particular authorities, but there is
Mm.
no problem in cross-checking.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes wholesale, literally
Mm.
the whole community was following at the time. I mean,
Mm.
nonsense, no one questioned, the whole community was following, but the whole community
Mm.
was wrong actually. So therefore we have to, that is what charismatic leadership does in one sense. Charismatic leadership is needed,
Mm.
but when the charismatic leadership is little bit here and there, then that's always a problem. So therefore, the guideline that Srila Prabhupada has given is Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. All three should be
Mm.
concurrence. So if it is not there, then we should always clarify, seek
Yeah.
clarification.
Thank you, Project. Thank you so much.
Right. Nitai Mata Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you
Yes, ma'am.
very much. And actually, I had mm, you kind of cleared off my doubts partly, answering the other this Prabhu's question. Prabhu, sometimes when you ask the leader, like a senior devotees, who you think that you should follow, they
Mhm,
would they would inspire as per
mhm,
their experience. Even they would not know you. They still, because when you change the yatras, because not everybody knows, okay, what is you from when onwards, like, for how long and what is your background, nothing. So if they say something as per their inspiration, as their experience, you get really bewildered. You sometimes feel, oh my God, what am I speaking? To whom I'm speaking? Now seems to be I kind of lost.
mhm,
So it is because you say something and they reply for something else. You feel so.
mhm.
So how are we? It is sometimes very hard to get in. Um, like you can whatever inspiration you have within also goes away looking
Mhm,
at those things. So
mhm.
how we can like pick all the broken pieces and make it happen, Prabhu, in these situations?
Well,
Even
um,
sorry, Prabhu, I just want, even you follow, yes, Guru Sadhu Shastra, and you don't see that mood at all. Mood is maybe senior or somebody, but mood is totally bewildering.
well,
So, yeah,
in, yeah, inspiration is something which is very individual, Mataji. Inspiration
Yeah,
need not come from a person who holds the position.
okay,
So, to take inspiration is our individual responsibility.
okay,
Uh,
yeah,
so, um, it is our responsibility. We cannot criticize the leader. So, because it is all said and done, it is our spiritual life.
yeah,
Uh, we have no one to blame. We
yeah,
have ourselves to blame.
mm,
So, I will give you an example.
mm,
So, I had one of my cousin sisters.
mm,
Uh, we both were in the same uh, class, same grade. And when we were in our 12th grade, which is supposed to be the most important exam, which is supposed to, decide your career.
mm,
So, and we had just about 1 month for the final exam. And I just happened to meet my cousin sister, and we were just sharing notes. And I asked, okay, how is your preparation and things? She said, oh, I have not studied 4 chapters. I have not touched only. And I asked, how come? So she said, well, my teacher became sick and he did not teach,
mm,
so I did not read.
mm,
I said, you foolish girl, in the final exam, when you don't write uh, the answers for those 4 chapters, they are not going to exempt you or excuse you because your teacher did not teach you. All said and done, it's going to be your future. If the teacher did not teach, you cannot say that as an excuse in the board and say that no, you have to excuse me. So you have to take personal responsibility and study it. So, and then whatever time I had, I tried to explain to her those 4 chapters. But the point is, see, uh, it is the responsibility of the individual to seek inspiration from where they get.
Uh,
We
Prabhu,
need not, I'll just,
okay.
we need not actually, the problem with all of us, or most of us,
Mm,
is that the common mentality is that the inspiration should come from those who hold high positions in the institutional hierarchy.
Prabhu, can I just ask? I think no, Prabhu. I think I did a mistake there. I'm not talking about inspiration coming from them. I'm talking sometimes even your enthusiasm is treated as, oh, that's okay. Don't worry. This will be fine. This will be okay. Don't worry, it will be fine. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to do 100, but you know that, oh no, we can do this way. We can. Why not? Why not we do this for Lord? No, no, that's all right. That's okay. Don't worry about it. The
Mm-hmm.
Lord is happy. Lord is happy. Don't worry. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the point, Prabhu. I just wanted to say, Lord is happy. Don't worry. Maybe Lord wants that way. You put the Lord there, so you have to keep quiet. Then you don't know what to do. This is what, not the inspiration, Prabhu. Your enthusiasm is sometimes taken as you don't need to be overdoing things like that.
There might be an element of truth to it also, Mataji.
Mm-hmm.
uh, because I don't know the situation, I have not seen, so I cannot tell for sure who is right.
Yeah,
So
but is it coming
therefore,
from? Is it coming from that sometimes even the leaders have the mentality, no, we shouldn't do any changes. We have to just follow. 15 years we have been doing it. It is all going. Even there are problems, still we have to follow it. So we are not changing any
well, yeah,
anything.
I mean, these are things which I cannot
Prabhu,
comment.
what to do with this type of, if this happens, how we can be still properly situated in such situations?
Well, um, I mean, so in that case, I am sure there must be leaders visiting from other places, some other senior devotees. Uh, it need not be who can look at the whole situation from a neutral point of view and maybe
Hmm.
guide you. So you can take inspiration from, you can have otherwise this is not the forum where, because I don't know for sure, maybe they are right, maybe they have learned certain things from the experience, and
Hmm.
they know that these things don't work, and therefore even someone may be enthusiastic, they may see it as misdirected enthusiasm. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
so
Another thing I want to say, sometimes devotees does speak, sometimes there is no voice to it. So why I'm asking this question, Prabhu, sometimes we feel, uh, of course, we are always conditioned, and we try to come out of that situation. We feel, oh, okay, so but don't want to get into that condition part. We just want to be situated properly, even
Mhm,
with your enthusiasm.
mhm.
If you can't situate yourself properly, then it's no point of having enthusiasm, isn't it, Prabhu?
Yeah, I mean, in principle, but even though I am not able to completely relate to the question, but I understand in principle what you say is right.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
It is a struggle, Prabhu, honestly. It's not only
Yeah,
my question. This is a question for many. This is a question of many, Prabhu. You know.
yeah, but honestly, I mean, in this is not a forum where we can discuss deals, Martin.
Yeah, I understand.
So I honestly cannot. I mean, I think definitely someone needs to hear you out
Hmm.
devotees significantly long time for the specific details and what
Hmm.
and understand the emotions what they are going through, uh, and then uh, uh, will should have some time and interest to understand the other side of the story also,
Hmm.
and then come to a conclusion. Otherwise, uh, and if and we can't do all of that in this forum. In this
Yeah.
forum we can discuss like general principles only.
Yeah. That's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
why it is sometimes it becomes. it's so sad sometimes devotees say, okay, no, it's fed up, no use of talking. So I feel like we all feel, oh my God, no, 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 don't get disheartened. Things will work out, no problem. Let us be enthusiastic. So we have to patch up with each other then. What can we do otherwise? Okay, Prabhu, thank you. I'm sorry to
Yes.
take that time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay, anything else before we move ahead? Okay, let's continue our discussion. So today we'll start the second of the very important elements of progressing on the path of devotional service, which is confidence. Enthusiasm should be there, but confidence is also very important. Confidence or determination. Otherwise, it cannot be like, I don't know if in India we have this firecracker which is called as flower pot. So as soon as you light that flower pot, it sort of, there is like, starts blazing out like a volcanic eruption, but after some 10 seconds, it completely dies off. There is that initial enthusiasm without the confidence and determination. Okay. So along with confidence, you need, along with enthusiasm, you need confidence and patience also. So we may have enthusiasm to perform our duties, devotional duties, but we must have patience to continue. We must have patience to when it comes to expecting the results of our enthusiasm. So, like Prabhupada always says, Prabhupada tells in that section that a woman may get married and she can't expect to become a mother in the next day. So it is a process that it takes 10-12 months for someone to conceive and give birth to a child. So therefore patience has to be there, but nevertheless, so the enthusiasm should be tempered with proper patience. And when we don't see results, then we should have proper determination. And how we can have determination, even sometimes when we do not see the results. That is what from today, for maybe next 2 or 3 sessions, we will discuss on this theme of Nishchaya. How we can endeavor with determination. How we can endeavor with determination. Okay, that is called as Nishchaya or confidence. How we can endeavor with confidence. That is what we are going to discuss. So the first thing that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to tell is that kill the demon of doubt to gain confidence. So one can confidently do something only if there is no doubt. Okay. So in order to progress on the path of devotional service with confidence, we should be willing to remove the doubts. That is the point that he's telling. So we will discuss this for a while. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, in his Upadeshamrita, Srila Rupa Goswami has instructed the practitioners of devotional service to be confident, Nishchaya. Until this confidence is achieved, one will remain doubtful. Until this confidence is achieved, one will remain doubtful. Doubtful persons never have auspiciousness. How then will they have faith in unalloyed devotional service when they are doubtful at heart? So the important aspect of one very important aspect of devotional service is time and again try to address the doubts that we may have, because doubts stunt our growth in devotional service. Our growth in devotional service. So we should remove doubts. We should endeavor to remove the doubts. So he says, it is said in Bhagavad Gita 4.40, Ajñascha ashraddadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati. Nayam lokosti naparo nasukam samshayatmanaha. So there are three categories of people: Ajña, Ashraddadhana, and Samshayatma. This is the third category. So Agya means one who is ignorant of scripture. So this is the first category. So plain ignorant people, those who do not know what is given in the Shastras, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. They don't know anything about scriptures. They are Agya. Then the second category are Ashraddadana. Ashraddadana means one who knows the scripture but he has no faith in it. Like, say, for example, people who, for academic purposes, are academicians who study religion or religious texts, spiritual texts, but they don't have faith that it needs to be applied in their own life. So they just want to know, some philosophy. That's all. Like say, for example, in the Western world, there are people who have very extensively studied Srila Rupa Goswami's writings, Srila Jiva Goswami's writings. They don't think it is meant to be applied in their own lives. Like, say, for example, I had an aunt. I still have an aunt. So she studied. She got a master's in Sanskrit and she got a master's in philosophy, and she studied Ramanujacharya's philosophy. So she could very nicely quote how Ramanujacharya defeated Mayavad, how he established the supremacy of Lord Vishnu, how he, how he, and various such philosophical things. But when it comes to, so she can very fluently quote the writings of Ramanujacharya in Sanskrit and very powerfully establish how Vishnu is supreme and the form of the Lord is transcendental. How worship of the Supreme Lord Vishnu can fulfill all of one's desire. So she can very powerfully do it. But when she gets into some trouble, the first thing she does is she runs to a Sai Baba temple which is nearby. Or there is a Ganesh temple nearby. She runs there. Demigod worship. Even though she has studied Ramanujacharya's writings and she herself grew up in a household. But despite that, despite having all knowledge, you ask her, can you tell me how, what Ramanujacharya tells about demigod worship, worshipping. So she will quote Sanskrit and tell. But when it comes to practical problems, she will run to a demigod temple. Or even demigod temple is okay, she will run to Sai Baba temple. Right? So So therefore, this is Ashraddha Dana, which means having knowledge of something from a very academic standpoint, but not really having faith in it, for not really having faith that it should that it has any practical value. Okay, so this is the second category person. Agnyascha, Ashraddhadanascha. The third is the most unfortunate, Samshayatma. Samshayatma means one who had faith, but because of bad experience has started doubting. One who had faith, but because of bad experience, he has started doubting. Samshayatma. This is because of unfavorable experiences in Krishna consciousness. After taking up the Krishna consciousness, like to some extent, like what Nitai Mataji was sharing, where they did not probably get encouragement from seniors, from the leaders. So because of unfavorable experiences, one becomes doubtful of attaining the goal, even with faith. So this is the third category and most unfortunate. So he says, Samshayatma vinashyati, he perishes. Because the person, such a person will not go and worship Sai Baba also. Because he knows that, and he will not go and worship demigods also. But at the same time, he does not have full faith in practice of devotional service also. So therefore, it becomes very, very difficult. Because of unfavorable experiences, he has developed doubts. So therefore, we are responsible. Just like faith develops and gets nurtured by favorable association, but by unfavorable association, even within the devotional realm, actually it weakens one's faith. It sows the seeds of doubts in the process. Does the process work? Then why is a person who has practiced the process for so many years, why is he behaving like this? Which means maybe after years of practice, even I will face the same problem. So these are the three categories of people who have faith issues. One person who is totally ignorant of the scriptures and their. Second is one who has no faith but has only academic knowledge. The third is one who had faith, but his faith has gotten challenged because of unfavorable experiences within the devotional realm. So he has become doubtful. So one has become cynical. People become cynical because of unfavorable experiences within devotional service. And if one becomes a cynic, an insider becomes a cynic. So when an insider becomes a cynic, then his life is doomed actually. Because he cannot enjoy the material world also. And he cannot enjoy the spiritual world also. The spiritual realm also he cannot enjoy. So such people are the most miserable people. So therefore, now that we have taken up to the process of devotional service, we don't fall in the first category. We don't fall in the second category also, but we have the danger of falling into this most dangerous category of Samshayatma. So therefore, we have to be very careful in choosing our association, and at no point we should allow ourselves to be exposed to association which will sow the seeds of doubt in our heart. And if the seeds of doubt are sown in our heart, we must be diligent to address them and remove them from our heart. Because the longer the doubts persist, then we are in greater danger of become an insider cynic, a cynical insider. Cynical insiders have the most miserable life. The most miserable life. So he says, Samshayatmanah, for this third category of people, he says, Na ayam loko asti, one who is afflicted with doubt attains nothing in this life. Na ayam loko asti. And na paro, he cannot attain anything in the next life also. Na sukam, and he cannot be happy. Because cynical people are always miserable. So therefore, as much important it is to inspire new people to take up to the process of Krishna consciousness, as probably it is much more important, 100 times more important, to give a very favorable experience to the insiders and have a very solid system which resolves their doubts, not just philosophical doubts, but even practical doubts. It's very important actually. Otherwise, if a society breeds cynical insiders, then it's very unfortunate actually. Yeah. So therefore, this second aspect of Nishchaya, Nishchaya, or progressing with confidence, very much depends on resolving doubts, not just philosophical doubts, but even practical bewilderment of devotees, seeing other devotees' behavior, seeing other devotees struggle with their conditionings, seeing, and so many things, seeing some scandalous behavior from the devotees only. So there must be a proper system where people are very carefully and kindly, sensitively helped out, helped out of their doubts, so that they don't become cynical insiders, miserable cynical insiders actually. So we will see some commentaries and purports of this particular verse. This is not a part of Bhakti Aloka by Bhakti Thakur, but he did quote this verse. But I thought it is important that we read some explanation of this verses from Srila Baldev Bhushan, Srila and Srila Prabhupada. Let us read. So Baldev Bhushan says, having described those qualified for knowledge and the results, the Lord now describes the unqualified person and the result for that person. These persons are of three categories. So the one qualified for knowledge is the one who is faithful. So, and one who is unqualified for knowledge is one who lacks that faith. Okay, so he says the ignorant person, this is the first category. He's talking about Agnya. The ignorant person, like an animal with no knowledge of scriptures, or the person who, in spite of having knowledge of scriptures, has no faith since he has a quarrelsome nature. This is the second type, ashraddha dana. Or the person who, in spite of having faith, doubts if he can attain perfection. This is samshayatma. This person is destroyed. So this person is one who has faith, doubts if he can attain perfection. If he has doubts because of unfavorable experiences, no one bothered to clarify his doubts. So this means he deviates from his own interest. Among these persons, the one with doubts is especially criticized, the third category person. Okay, he is especially criticized. This doubtful person does not have happiness from the gross world or the next world. Because such a devotee, he has lost faith in capacity of the material world, or he has lost faith in the in what to say, in the ability, in the that sense gratificatory endeavors can please. But at the same time, because he doubts whether the efficacy of the process of bhakti, therefore bhakti is also not working for him, because the fuel for attaining perfection in bhakti or any other spiritual process for that matter is faith. And when that faith is compromised, then the result comes very, very slow, and very meager results only come. So this compounds the problem actually. So he says, happiness is generated from actions prescribed by scriptures. That action is accompanied by knowledge of the individual Atma. Where is that happiness for one who has doubts about attaining the goal? When one is highly doubtful of attaining the goal, then where can there be happiness for such a person? So therefore he is specifically criticizing this third category person, who is samshayatma. Okay, because this agya has alternate faith. Okay, the ashraddha dana also has alternate faith, because he has only academic knowledge, but this samshayatma lacks because he has given up faith in material endeavors and everything, and he lacks sufficient faith in bhakti. I mean, lacking sufficient faith in bhakti is okay, but he has doubts. He has doubts. This is more serious problem. Weak faith is not a problem. Weak faith is not a problem, but doubts are a serious problem. Actually, doubts are a serious problem. So, Srila Prabhupada commenting on this verse, he says, out of many standard and authoritative revealed scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is the best. Persons who are almost like animals have no faith in or knowledge of the standard revealed scriptures. So this is the first category, agya. And some, even though they have knowledge of or can cite passages from the revealed scriptures, have actually no faith in these words. This is ashraddha dana. Okay, like I gave the example of my aunt, right? but at least she has faith in someone else. She has faith in Sai Baba. She has faith in Lord Ganesh. Even though she can quote passages from Srila Ramanujacharya's writings, like how Ramanujacharya defeat of demigod worship. Very powerfully, in Sanskrit only she will quote. But when it comes to practical shelter, she will run to a demigod. But at least she has faith in that alternate shelter. And even though others may have faith in scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, they do not believe in or worship the personality of God and Sri Krishna. Such persons cannot have any standing in Krishna consciousness. So the problem is they had faith, but they lost it. This is the most, this is Samshayatma, most unfortunate. Okay. They fall down. Out of all the above mentioned persons, those who have no faith and are always doubtful make no progress at all. Men without faith in God and His revealed word find no good in this world nor in the next. Nayam lokosti naparo nasukam samshayatmanaha. For them, there is no happiness whatsoever. One should therefore follow the principles of revealed scriptures with faith and thereby be raised to the platform of knowledge. Only this knowledge will help one become promoted to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding. In other words, doubtful persons have no status whatsoever in spiritual emancipation. They are not to be criticized. Actually, they really need support actually. Doubts can have an epidemic effect actually. They can spread, they have especially in a close-knit society like ours, these doubts and cynicism can spread like pandemic, epidemic. They can spread like that and it becomes very difficult. One should therefore follow in the footsteps of great acharyas who are in the disciplic succession and thereby attain success. Which means we should have systems which can address doubts. Which can address doubts. The longer the doubts persist, the more danger is there for such a person to become a cynical insider. So therefore, we have to be very careful. So we will discuss little more on this, but before that, I will pause to see if there are any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share, add. We will discuss for a while, and then we'll continue. There have been some questions in the chat box. I'll first take that, and then we'll go forward. First thing, okay. First comment. This is where the devotee care comes in. Very true. Very true. We need, very mature, sensitive, good care is very critical. I agree. Another question. What will be the fate of the person who has lost faith in the immediate authority due to his behavior and vice versa? Well, if one has lost faith in the immediate authority, which is quite possible, but one thing we should understand is that our relationship with Krishna should not be compromised because of that. If we don't like our immediate authority, if we don't like his actions, then we have no right to punish ourselves for that. Okay. If we lose faith in Krishna consciousness, because then that is very unfortunate, because we have to see there are many great personalities like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and even amongst the Vartaman Acharyas, so many wonderful devotees have nicely practiced devotional service and attained perfection. So why should we allow our own practice of devotional service to be affected just because we have some issues with the behavior of our immediate authority? Okay. So one thing we should be very clear is we should not punish ourselves for the behavior of our immediate authority. By saying, oh, you're behaving with me like this, from today I will not practice devotional service. Now, who is going to lose? So therefore, we have to be careful, and this is how we should guide others also, that yes, this is natural, that we may not like the behavior, but that's okay. That is why I was sharing. One need not see spiritual inspiration is very individual. Spiritual inspiration cannot be institutionalized. It is not that your immediate managerial authority should be the person from whom you should derive spiritual inspiration. This is not a rule. Spiritual inspiration is very individual. So one can derive it from one, institutionalize it. It is very individual. One can, wherever one finds spiritual inspiration, one should take it. And if one does not get spiritual inspiration from the managerial authority, one need not. That's okay. But it is responsibility of every single individual practitioner to seek association and guidance from where one gets proper inspiration. And that need not be from a person who may hold a very high position in the institutional hierarchy. So, but this is where people, many times when people, the authority above them, if they are disappointed with their behavior, then people lose spiritual enthusiasm. But why? They may be our authorities, managerial authorities, but to seek inspiration, one need not necessarily take inspiration from those who hold hierarchical positions or managerial positions. One should take inspiration from where one gets. That is very important. That is individual responsibility. We cannot criticize. Oh, Prabhuji, you know what? I am not chanting today because my authority was very mean. I mean, who is losing? So therefore, it's very important. Okay, there is another question here in the chat box. You told in previous class on engaging senses is the solution to control mind. Is that menial services, engaging physical senses, is more purifying and uplifting than other senses like ears, tongues, engagement involving chanting and hearing? Well, no, it depends. All senses have to be engaged. Not just the karmendriyas, but the jnanendriyas also. As practically all senses have to be engaged in Krishna conscious activities. Then, but especially the jnanendriyas, because they provide the food for rumination for the mind. So therefore, it's very critical actually, especially the jnanendriyas. Of course, the karmendriyas also. Okay, there is another question. From the last few years, seeing many devotees presenting the Krishna conscious philosophy, I found that many were giving their own understanding in their own terms. Slowly, I developed the fear to hear from anyone. Kindly help me. Faith, except very few. Can you kindly suggest if I can develop my perspective? Being in the institute, we have to be under someone. Well, again, in today's day and age, see, it is our responsibility to protect our faith. So, one thing we should understand is that when someone is presenting and we don't get inspiration, it is all right. It is all right. We can always hear from those from whom we get that inspiration. And this is one thing which people cannot complain in today's day and age, because there is ISKCON Desire Tree and so much material is available practically. All the speakers, talks and lectures are there. And so one can definitely choose, if someone feels that I am feeling more inspiration from this particular speaker, no one is stopping. One can always hear from that particular devotee and get the inspiration. So therefore, there is nothing wrong in that. And but at the same time, if there are more and more people who fall in that category, hearing whom we cannot trust, then we have to understand if the problem is with us only. Maybe am I becoming very cynical? We have to see actually. One can seek inspiration from wherever one gets that inspiration. So that is absolutely no problem with that. Anyways, so yeah, that is why one of the things is that we should also be we should also endeavor to properly study our scriptures so that we know what is given in our scriptures, because otherwise we may think that they were presenting their own understanding in their own terms, but because we have not probably properly read the scriptures, we are not even able to discriminate who is presenting their own understanding and who is actually presenting the scriptures, right? So that is why this is a very critical thing. We should understand it is always good to quote scriptures. So when we are presenting, we should constantly keep quoting from the words of the scriptures directly and from the words of the acharyas, rather than presenting our own understanding. And even if we are presenting the words of the scriptures and words of the acharyas, it is very important. As a speaker, I am telling, as a speaker, it is important to quote references. Oh, this is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. This is what Srila Prabhupada says. This is what Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan says. This is what Srila Jiva Goswami says. And where do they say this? It's important, so that the other person gets confidence that yes, because you have presented a very important, very critical point actually here. Because if people are presenting their own understanding, probably they are not presenting their own understanding. They are but because they are not properly and sufficiently quoting references, maybe and also because we have not studied properly, therefore we don't get that confidence. So therefore, these are things which we have to keep in mind, both as a speaker and as a hearer also. Okay. Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes,
Yeah, I don't think I'm very clear on the distinction between having doubts and weak faith. Maybe if you can like give an example or something of like both to contrast.
Okay. So weak faith maybe weak conviction. But doubt is negative. Doubt means, see, weak faith is a little bit, weak faith is, you can say, passive doubt, whereas doubt is active. I'm actively doubting whether this really works. So they are similar, but doubt. So weak faith is something which is possessed by a beginner, but doubts are possessed by those who have spent sufficient time and their faith was challenged due to unfavorable experiences. Whereas weak faith remains weak because
a dearth of favorable experiences, maybe.
Sufficient favorable experiences which will nourish that faith, whereas doubts are due to erosion of existing faith due to unfavorable experiences in devotional service. Like that.
Okay, yeah, that's much clearer. Thank you. Also, you know, your voice cut out a little bit when you were talking about your aunt. So you had said the kind of household that she grew up in. What was the kind of household?
I said it was a Vaishnava household.
Vaishnava household.
Yeah.
Okay. So for that reason, especially now, I find it a little perplexing that a person could have even academic interest in the acharyas and their philosophy without that leading to devotion. So, you know, my question is, I guess maybe it's because of my own mindset, but I'm like, you know, if devotion is not your interest, you know, what is so much appeal that you would especially go through so much sacrifice to make such in-depth study, you know? So one is how does a person have that much interest without it leading to devotion, you know, and make so much sacrifice without
devotion.
How does it not lead to devotion? I mean, I know we have free will, everybody's individual, but I just find that a little, you know.
Can I okay. Okay, I will share some possibilities. You can share your thoughts on them. How about someone who has some interest in poetry, literature? Okay, and yeah, it could be poetry, it could be literature, it could be prose, or it could even be something like you know, someone reads, someone who is interested in dance, you know, in classical dance, which is very much based on emotions, and for understanding the emotions and the science behind the emotions, so that one can depict those emotions in dance. One may study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu for that, especially the section on rasa. And in fact, one of the very popular commentaries on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was co-authored by one of the popular dancers, because their profession, uh, their profession is, especially in the South Indian classical dance, is to depict emotions through their facial expressions, through their hand gestures, movements of their bodily parts. It's very clear. Because you can't talk, you can't speak, you can't discourse, but you should able to express just through your facial expressions, hand gestures, bodily postures, very clearly, emotions. So for that, you should have a very clear-cut understanding of emotions, what causes particular emotions. Because even from a mundane perspective, you can't just change your facial features. You have to have a feel for it. In order to depict a particular emotion, you should have a feel for it. So therefore, for such purposes also, and people do it for teaching. They have to. So they learnt language. So some people learnt Sanskrit language, and they have to study something in Sanskrit. You can't. Some people may not be interested in just studying grammar. So they may choose. Okay, let me read something interesting so that I can teach. Some people are interested in research, linguistic research. People are interested in linguistic research. So for that, they choose how particular religious sentiments may drive the evolution of a language. People study these things, you know. So for many of these purposes, people do read and study um, actually Vaishnava literatures, writings of our acharyas. So, and just like, we we learned so much of integral calculus, differential calculus. I mean, from what I have observed, 99.99% of the people who study these things, either, I mean, trigonometry is still okay, but integral calculus or differential calculus, they do not know absolutely what is the practical utility of what they are studying. But still, they put all the effort to study because they want to score marks. That's all. So yeah, I mean, why is it not possible? Definitely, it's possible. Because I will tell you my aunt's case. Because my aunt grew up in a family which was quite erudite in the field of Sanskrit. So she, so therefore, to choose Sanskrit as an occupation to learn and teach was something which was quite natural for her. So, and she had to choose some philosophy because she wanted to do a master's in philosophy. So she chose Ramanujacharya's philosophy. So yeah, this happens. So
You said that they were erudite in sense gratification, yet they were Vaishnava family also.
yeah, I mean, she grew up, but eventually, just because she grew up in that family, not necessarily mean that the seed of devotion, genuine devotion, must have been sown. It may take another lifetime for that to manifest. So she just keeps worshipping the demigods.
And that would still be considered Vaishnava.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Mataji. I lost.
Oh yeah, something happened with the line. Yeah, so demigod worship is considered Vaishnava still.
Demigod worship is considered
Vaishnava.
No,
worship.
It is not considered Vaishnava. That is the point. That's why I was telling that even though she can with great erudition, she can quote that how Ramanujacharya very powerfully presented the demigod worship is wrong. She can quote that, but when it comes to her own worship or faith, she would go and worship the demigods only.
Yes, but you said she grew up in a Vaishnava family.
She grew up in a Vaishnava family, but she didn't accept that philosophy.
Okay. Okay. And we hear about Sai Baba, this name all the time, but I don't know, not that I want to make this a tangent, but I just don't know what is his philosophy that is different from Vaishnava? I don't know. I just a very commonly heard name for me.
I mean, I don't know what
And
his
I know
philosophy
that
is. I don't know what his philosophy is, but just that people believe that he is God.
they believe he is God.
Yeah.
Mhm. But we don't know what his if he's his attitude toward God is. But I
Well, I
guess
mean,
it has to be in some competition. Otherwise, he wouldn't allow people to think in that way. I guess. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I lost the last line. I could not hear. No.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with the connection. Yeah, I was just saying that, I was wondering what his attitude toward God is, but I guess there has to be some level of envy or competition. Otherwise, he wouldn't allow his followers to think of him as God.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if he ever bothered to stop his uh, the followers from calling him as God. I don't know.
Mhm. Okay, Prabhu, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Bala Ganesh Prabhu.
Prabhu,
Dandat Prabhu.
Prabhu, regarding this, whether what means confusion regarding whether the speaker is putting his own perspective or is he carrying the footsteps of great acharyas? How to decide, Prabhu? Like, is there any? Even though we are reading, sometimes it's very difficult to decide. For example, last week I met one devotee doctor. So he's saying, why you many devotees are staying inside temple. No one should be inside temple. They should come out and preach. Preaching is the dearmost service to Krishna. Whereas normal services anyone can do. Even we can engage employees to do. So whereas our temple generally in ISKCON temples, it's not that much emphasized that okay everybody should go out and preach. So like preaching and services. So what is the difference between them and a practitioner devotee? What should he focus more on, Prabhu?
I mean, you are taking this as an example, right? Because
Yes, Prabhu. Example. So my question is like, if you wanted to please Krishna more, so do we need to put more efforts in preaching or services related to temple? What is the best way to please Krishna?
can you repeat the last line? I lost your connection.
Currently, I'm not a full-time devotee, Prabhu. I'm a working employee. So if I get a chance, if I get a bandwidth, so if I wanted to please Krishna, so what is the best way, whether to engage in the preaching service or engaging in the temple services? What is most pleasing to Krishna among these two?
I mean, I can answer this question, but I'm just wondering how is it connected to the topic that we are discussing?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I mean, following footsteps of acharyas, like one devotee asked about confusion regarding the perspective of opinions. So I hear always these two things. So I'm but unable to decide what is exactly correct, Prabhu. It seems like when I hear from that devotee, okay, this is correct. When I hear from other devotee, that is also correct, but both are different perspectives. So while we are finalizing something, so what is the
Okay, so that is a general principle you're asking. So I'll choose not to answer the direct question because it's not really connected to the topic. But the general principle about how do we decide, person A is telling something, person B is telling something. So how do we decide?
Both are quoting Acharya's statements.
Okay. So in that case, then you can choose someone who is who is superior to both of them in their practice of Krishna consciousness, in their understanding of Krishna consciousness, and in their consistency in practicing over many years. So we can approach such devotees and seek clarification.
Okay. Okay. Seniority and
So, and also we can see, repeat.
You mean seniority in terms of knowledge or in terms of years of experience, bro?
Years of experience, knowledge, practice.
Okay.
So when you clearly see, and in whom you have trust, in whom you have trust, we can approach them and seek clarification. Prabhuji, and sometimes even between acharyas there may be difference of opinion.
Exactly. Yeah.
So even with respect to philosophical conclusions, minor philosophical conclusions, not major philosophical conclusions. So it is possible, and Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan says, in that case, choose one and follow it properly. So choose one opinion and follow it properly. That's what he says.
Okay. Okay. So we need to stick to any one of them and continue with them. Okay.
Yeah. No. And if it is seriously different, then one can approach someone who is senior to both of them in terms of knowledge and practice of Krishna consciousness over a long period of time, and in whom we have trust. So we can approach them and seek for clarification, which is correct. What should I follow? Like that.
Okay, bro. Yeah, thanks a lot, bro. And if time permits, if possibility is there, you can answer that question also, bro, which is more dear to Krishna. Thanks a lot, bro.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mother Gail.
Yeah, just in your answer to this last question, you were including years of practice as one of the features of a person who is senior. So I was just thinking that for me, seniority has always meant a person who is defined more by a person who is more realized in their knowledge of Shastra, or their depth of realization, let's say, in their knowledge of Shastra, which can, a person who has been practicing, 6 months, in that regard might be more senior than a person who has been practicing 6 years, So I just always felt that, the length of time that one practices is, because we don't know, the quality of that person's practice over their duration and on the path, I just feel like the length of time doesn't necessarily tell us so much. So I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Yeah, I totally agree on this point, that the length of time or the duration that someone has practiced Krishna consciousness need not necessarily translate into valuable realizations. I totally agree with this point. But certainly, time spent plays an important role in bestowing valuable realizations. So I will. There is this verse which says, aspects of gaining knowledge or realization. So he says, the verse says, Acharya Padam Adarte. So he says, one gains, Padam means 1/4. One gains 1/4 of knowledge from the Acharya or from the teacher. And then he says, Padam Swamedaya. 1/4 by utilizing one's own intelligence one's own reflection, one gains 1/4. Then he says, Padam Saha Brahmacharina, and 1/4 by fellow practitioners, our interactions with fellow practitioners, what we learn from peers, basically, peers and fellow practitioners. And then Padam Kala Kramenacha. So Padam Kala Kramenacha means 1/4 we learn only by time.
By
So
what?
time.
Oh, time.
Time. So realizations, time is a very important factor in actually bestowing realizations actually. So time spent, while that cannot be taken as the only parameter, but one cannot discount that parameter also. So time spent, so we cannot exclusively take time as the only factor, and at the same time we cannot completely discount time. So and sometimes we may actually, how do we know which is a more valuable realization? Because we may evaluate it based on our own intelligence actually, which may also be compromised. So therefore we cannot completely exclusively take one parameter and make it whole and soul. So definitely time does play a critical factor in bestowing realizations, but at the same time, time in itself is not a sufficient factor to bestow realization. So we have to understand that all these parameters play a role, and most importantly, we have to see that maybe there is a chance that in my ability to evaluate a person's realizations also. So we have to sometimes see, many times what happens is, when I don't say that this is always the case, but many times it may happen that a person who resonates with our inclinations, he may sometimes feel that his realizations are very deep and valuable. That kind of a bias also we may sometimes carry. So so we have to be aware of the potential pitfalls in the whole evaluation process actually. So yeah, while having mentioned point that it is quite possible that a person who has spent less time in Krishna consciousness may have more valuable realizations. It is very much possible. I don't deny that point at all. But having said that, the whole the evaluation procedure has to be evaluated actually also.
Yeah. And the way I understand, the value of time is because, in order for us to get some realizations, not all, sometimes realizations just comes very spontaneously from Krishna, but some realizations, maybe time is important because time is needed for experiences to unfold in our lives. I'm seeing time in that way. I don't know, maybe if there's some other way, but maybe that's the significance of time when it comes to maturation. Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes I do understand that improper knowledge can lead to improper realizations, even though there is the element of time acting on it. Like I will give you an example. I will give you an example to support your point only. So how time spent need not necessarily lead to right realizations. When we start on the wrong foot, uh, then uh, then over a period of time, the maturation of time may sometimes, if we are fortunate enough to get, it may wrong understanding may get transformed into right understanding, or sometimes if you are unfortunate and if you are not fortunate enough to get the good association, our wrong understanding may mature into wrong realizations also.
Yeah, it may
So
deepen. Yeah.
yeah, it may deepen. Like say, for example, I remember I was once traveling with another devotee, and generally during travel time, um, you, because both of you are not busy with your services, so you get time to catch up with each other, open up your heart and share some experiences, because we have a lot of time that we can time to spend with each other. So he was opening up with me. He said, I have a one thing I have very deeply realized in my stay in the ashram. He said, I said, oh yeah, please share with me what is your realization. So he said, uh, first, in my first year in my ashram, I wanted to establish a relationship with this particular person. So I endeavored a lot and tried to establish a relationship with that person. But after some time, he behaved in this way, and I lost that interest. That relationship broke. And then I saw this second person with whom I thought, oh, it would be so nice if I befriend this person, I develop a relationship with this person. And then I endeavored a lot, tried and established a relationship with that person. But after broke. And in this way, 3, 4, 5 times, the same thing happened. So I have come to this great realization. He said, I said, what's your realization? He said, in this material world, even with devotees, one can never have good relationships. Uh, Good relationship is possible only with Krishna. It's not possible with any human beings. So this was the conclusion that he came to. And he said, this is my deep realization. Well, I would say in one sense, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because this is not true. Because acharyas don't support, or the scriptures do not support this conclusion. But nevertheless, it started out, uh, he started out with faith that yes, I need to establish relationship with devotees, but somehow with experience and time, his realization is he came to a realization which is not correct actually. So therefore it is true that that time in itself need not be a sufficient factor to bring about valuable realizations. But having said that, uh, time does play a very critical role. That is
Yeah, because it could go the other way, right?
yeah.
Time could make it go, it could make reality more apparent to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Or may actually prove our understandings to be misconceptions, and may clarify and present the right understanding. Over a period of time, our understanding may either get fine-tuned in the right direction, or if it was absolutely wrong understanding, time may prove that our understanding was wrong. But sometimes it may deepen our unfavorable predispositions and make our unfavorable predispositions into a very deep realization. wrong realization. Actually.
Yeah, actually,
So either
each
way,
of
it could
these
happen.
four, it seems actually each of these four paths could by themselves, could steer a person down the wrong path, just like how time could work both ways. If you come across, the wrong teacher, that could work both ways,
Yeah.
you might get good teacher, you might get bad teacher, your own reflections, right? If you're not thinking properly, and also with your peers, if you don't have good association. So each one of them by themselves, they can, you
pull
cannot
you in, push you in the wrong direction. Actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's quite possible. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we have to pause here. It's time. Someone is asking, where is this verse quoted? Well, this is not from a Vaishnava literature, but this is something which I will try to find the exact source of this. I don't know. I've heard this, but I don't know the exact source. But I will definitely find out and share it with you. Okay, so let's pause here. Thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. We will continue this discussion on Nischaya next week, next Wednesday. But till then, please have a nice weekend and the week ahead, and we will meet again next Wednesday. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Shri Bhakti Aloka ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.